Hello, everybody. Welcome on in, welcome on in. Welcome to the classes that happen to be here today, as well as the number of people that have decided to join up to watch this book, regardless of where you are in the world or what room you're sitting in. Welcome to Conversations with Authors and to Kathryn Otoshi's Lunch Every Day. Before we get to our authors properly, allow me to welcome you back, in some cases, to Conversations with Authors. If you've seen one of these events before, well, then I'm glad to see you here again. And if you are new here, then Book Passage is a collection of independently run bookstores in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we host and run book talks just like these all throughout the week. As we're streaming on YouTube, and will continue to do so in the future, please consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button below. It's completely free to you. Helps us out a lot. We really appreciate it. Additionally, if you'd like to check out our upcoming events or like the idea of an email newsletter and you are the type of person that will read your emails, then you can also find those over at bookpassage.com. And finally, and this is very important, particularly for the teachers out there, if anybody has any questions, because this book has the chat disabled, please email your questions to us to books@bookpassage.com. That's BOOKS at bookpassage, like the store.com. I will be the one to read them, and I will be the one to make sure that they get to the author. So if you have any questions, please email us again to books@bookpassage.com. That's just the way that YouTube makes it, so that we have to do. YouTube makes it. So now allow me to introduce Kathryn Otoshi. Kathryn is a multi-award-winning author, illustrator, and national international speaker, best known for her character-building series 0, 1, and 2. She goes to schools across the country to encourage kids to develop strong character assets and helps teachers find customized, creative methods to engage students through art, reading, and the power of literature. Her latest books, Beautiful Hands, Draw the Line, make upcoming statements about connecting, reaching out, and building community. Her the book we are speaking on today, but also I guess her upcoming book, her newest book, is called Lunch Every Day. Additionally, we have a very special speaker tonight, a very special guest tonight, I should say, which Kathryn will introduce to us. So welcome on it, Kathryn. Take it away.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thank you for coming to our book passage launch. One of the things that I wanted to talk about a bit is the whole thing with books and reading and the power of literature. So when I was growing up, my mom is the one that really, I feel, introduced me to books, for example, where um, she would volunteer at the public library and I would wait for her. And of course, while I was waiting, I would be pulling books off the shelves. And so if you actually look at the format of a book, it's very much like, I feel like a door or a portal that opens up and we can step inside. And from there, we can experience um, new things that the characters kind of teach us. We can experience new lands, I remember reading about Paris for the first time or reading about planet Mars. And that was so exciting to me. And it was almost like magic. And I always wanted to be connected to that kind of magic growing up. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to do children's picture books. I would say, sort of, my breakout book is the book one. And what I was going to talk briefly about is just the journey of each book and how every book does have kind of a backstory to it. One, of course, had to do with the issue of bullying, but it's really about standing up and being courageous. And for me, this was a very different book because I kind of got flack for it in the beginning because when people would look at it, I remember distinctly someone said, well, no one's going to buy that book because they're blobs of color and no one's going to get it conceptually. And I just really felt like it was a different book and I wanted to try it anyways. But all the colors have different personalities, and the real issue is between red and blue. Red is a hothead and he's always picking on quiet blue. And the big crux of the story is when um, all the other colors don't know what to do, but one character named One comes along and he actually shows the colors how to turn into numbers and count together. So that was kind of the biggest concept book that I had done to date. And I guess the backstory behind it that I had not remembered was when I was speaking, a kid asked me, they raised their hand and they said, Miss Otoshi, were you a blue growing up? Were you, you were afraid to stand up, or were you a red? And sometimes you got fiery and angry and were a bit of a hothead. And, or were you like green, purple, and orange who didn't like what they saw but didn't know what to do? And of course, for me, it recalled a memory where I realized I was more like green, purple, and orange who didn't like what they saw, but was afraid to be an upstander. And it had to do with a girl, a new kid that had entered the classroom door one day. And for me, she was special to me because she kind of looked like me, meaning same shaped eyes, same skin color, and same dark hair. And for whatever reason, I mean, the school isn't like this now, the same school, but um, there was nobody at my school, to my memory, that really looked like me. And I really felt like I didn't fit in, to the point that I remembered I would beg my parents for a certain brand of jeans just to fit in, or of course, try to get my parents to buy me cool toys. So I felt like those external things would make me feel more important or more valued. And so going back to this girl that walked through the classroom door, um, I immediately wanted to be friends with her, but what happened was she was not, she was different from me, only in that she was from a different country. She was not born here and she could not speak English well yet. And it started off with just a little snickers when her name was being read, and kids kind of laughing and making fun of her name, to extending to um, outright bullying. And some of you know this, but this girl would be so afraid of the rest of us, she would literally run to the bathroom, um, hide herself during the lunch period, and stand there throughout the entire lunch period, hoping no one would find her. And I felt like I could have been a one, and I had that opportunity one day when kids rushed um, to that door one day, and I was in the bathroom and I saw them shaking and rattling that door and calling her names. And I actually told some of the kids that because I speak a little bit off the cuff, and I talked about it. And I was so upset after that I went home and really tried to evaluate, why was I, not a one. So I wrote a book called Zero. And if you look closely at that big zero, um, the interesting part is, even as an adult, I kept thinking, because I was in the film industry, and I was like, if I do a children's picture book and I got recognized for it, that's how I'll feel whole. That'll just, be it for me. And it was so interesting because one actually did get a lot of recognition. It was really what I consider my breakout book, as I mentioned. And I still felt the same. And it was so interesting. So this was happening at the same time. So I wrote the book Zero, not for kids like you, but also for me as an adult, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. I'm still trying to look for external ways to make me feel full as a person. So Zero is very much about a number where, she has a big hole in her center and she feels empty inside. And she totally feels like she looks at one, who, of course, the count starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And she's like, why am I never included? Why am I always being left out of the count? And she's really feeling it's that she does have zero value. And she, of course, twists and turns to make her zero to be like an 8 or a 9. Really, and it's super awkward for her. And she finally thinks, I'm going to impress everyone. I'm going to do all this stuff. And it has a disastrous effect where she actually crashes into all the numbers, and she's really embarrassed. And she says, it's no use. I'll never have value. I'll never be part of this count. But it's 7 from the book 1, who actually turns things around. And I always say, see, kids, it's important to give people a chance, because that individual might be able to turn things around for somebody else. But it's 7 who says, it's what's inside that counts most. Everyone has value. And of course, 0 realizes, you know what, I'm not empty inside, I'm open. And just as an adult, so much about things is trying to be open and trying to see yourself as the braver person that you hope to become. And so, I tell people, and actually, Alice, if you're on here, she's one of my best friends, but we talk about this every day. And I'm like, gosh, I'm still trying to work as a human being to be a better person. And we talked, I think it was actually last night, right? Where we're like, you know what, you can be a nice person, and that's important. But I started realizing it's more important to just be a good person, because a good person actually does realize that sometimes they have to be tough and they do have to stand up. So um, after I wrote 0, it was tough. I was going through a separation, and I was going through just different things in my adult life that I was trying to resolve. And so 2 is really, um, for kids, it's really about friendships and new experiences, for example, and how we stretch and grow. So with 0, if you have a 0, I have kids do this movement with me. So for you kids out there, 0 is really about filling that character circle inside of yourself. But 0, um, 0 is that, but 2 has to do with the horizontal circle. So I do have kids make kind of a basketball hoop and extending ourselves this way, which is a different kind of stretch, right? So the book 2 has to do with 2 characters, 1 and 2, um, who are friends. And then what happens is 3 jumps in, and the whole dynamic of the situation changes because 1 starts playing more with 3, 2 gets jealous, and she starts feeling very empty inside. And because she feels bad, all the numbers, like for example, the even numbers like 4, 6, and 8, they start siding with the way, here I'm trying to find that page, start siding with the way 2 feels. 5, 7, and 9, for example, side with 1 and 3, saying, they should be able to play with whoever you want, like kind of get over it. And the numbers begin to divide because the numbers do take sides. And of course, 0 is freaking out, and because she doesn't really know if she's odd or even. And she's like, wow, the odds are at odds with the evens, and the evens want to get even with the odds. And 2 feels split over the whole thing. But as you can see, the split becomes interesting because and as I say to you kids too, we don't love problems. I certainly don't. But when we have problems, that's actually the way we're able to evaluate our character. And that's where growth really happens, is because we're challenged with something. So it's not that we need to embrace it, but we also can look at it and see that, wow, life is presenting me with a challenge to grow my character. 2 splits, she questions everything, and she of course doesn't see what what is about to happen. And 0, after 2's like, forget about 1, I don't care, she's about to give up. And 0 says, you know what, that is the smaller side of you talking, but you are greater than that. Can you find it in your heart to see a new angle to this possibly? And just like me, I was like, no, I don't want to see a new angle, are you kidding? But of course, time heals all wounds, and she does. And she thinks and thinks, and suddenly she sees it. It is in me. I can be less than I've been or greater than I am. The choice is mine. So it's a little bit light right here, but you can see that the top part of her actually makes a heart. And what I tell kids all the time is, we bring ourselves every day to a situation, but sometimes our situation calls for us to bring our best selves. And you cannot do what I ask you to do in 2, bring your greater self, unless you really have 0, the concept of 0 down pat. So as I was stretching and growing and, reaching out and meeting new people with, 2 and so forth, I met a very wonderful person, Brett Baumgarten, and his wife. Deb, I don't know if you were able to make it today, but I hope so. And we became friends through a mutual friend. And we did find out that Brett was very sick. He told me that, and of course I'm not a doctor, but when I go to schools, I ask kids, what's one kind thing we could do for somebody every day? And I was like, wow, what can I do for Brett? Because I don't know how to help. And I remembered at a barbecue, he had told me he always wanted to do kids' books. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Why don't we do a book together for your kids, Noah and Sophie? So truly that is Noah's hand on the front. You can see Sophie's little hand right here in the white, but Brett's heart is in the palm. We did a book based on Brett's question to Noah and Sophie. He asked them every day while holding their hands, what will your beautiful hands do today? And I thought that was so touching because so much of my books are conceptual, but it's really about taking action and how do we go ahead and do that. So it's so much about the book is questions. So much about the book is, though, also asking these questions and then going from the physical action to the bigger vision. What will your beautiful hands do today? Will they plant? So, you can plant, sure, seeds, fruits, vegetables, but you can also plant ideas. So you can touch, for example. So this is the time I have kids touch their head or touch their laptop. But, if you do something meaningful for somebody, you can touch their heart, right? You can touch their heart. You can lift a heavy box for somebody, but you can lift someone's spirits if you encourage them with a kind word. You can stretch. There's no really wrong answer to this book, but you can stretch a rubber band. You can stretch your arms out to, give a virtual hug to somebody, but you can also stretch minds, goals, imaginations. And you can reach for the sky, but you could also reach for, of course, love and for peace, truth, faith, hope, and dreams. So the question for everybody here, of course, is, what will your beautiful hands do tomorrow? And over 100 handprints are in this book, giving love and support. And Brett's spirit shows him flying into tomorrow with a message of love and compassion, which for me taught me how wonderful it is to be a children's picture book author. But while I love writing and illustrating these books, the biggest thing for me that I learned was from you and your kids was how you take the messages in these books and you make them into your own stories. And so that was the biggest thing for me was community building. And during this time, I was at the International Bullying Prevention Conference, and I met a very wonderful person. His name's Jim Perez, and he just came up. This is how I remember it, Jim. But you came up afterwards and you said, you should come to my school, and I, because I do these programs, and I was like, sure, that would be great. And I did, and it went over really wonderfully. And he kept inviting me back year after year, and of course, we became friends. And what happened was one day over lunch, and you're welcome, Jim, to say your own variation of it in case I remember wrong. But I remember I was just literally oozing over just all the things that you've done, because the more I knew about you, the more I was amazed. Like, just to the friends here, Jim literally is somebody who does everything to me. He gets it conceptually. He's artistic. He's creative. He's an amazing manager of people. He's a wonderful director of all these programs. He's an initiator, but he's a man of action, really. And I said to him, I'm like, oh my gosh, we just talked about doing this program and you made it happen in days. It's like you've just parted the Red Seas, and I told him that. And so we were having lunch, and I was complimenting him, and he kind of looked at me and quietly said, Kathryn, I was actually a bully, kind of a bully growing up. And I'm like, I literally almost dropped my fork because I was like really surprised. And I'm like, wow, you're kidding. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what changed you? And so that's the story of Lunch Every Day. So I will introduce Jim formally after I read this book to you. I'm going to take off this cover to make it a little bit easier for me. But, and the way I remembered, because I could feel it now. Oh my gosh. Jim told me that, and I was literally in the moment. I was just really taken by it. And I said, you should write that story. He said, no, I'm not going to write that story. I'm like, no, it would be great. You should write it. And he's like, no, but you can. And I'm like, I'm not going to write the story. You should. And he's like, no, but you can. And it went back and forth a little bit. And then I think I brought it up one more time. And then it sort of spilled out of me one day. And this is the story. This is the story of Lunch Every Day, interpreted by me, but I try to keep as close to it as possible. So, all right, there he is. Just look at him. Skinny neck, slumping. Is there a face behind all that hair? I can topple him with a tap. At least his lunch is good. You can see the free lunch line here. No way am I standing in that line. At least his lunch is good. Better than mine. Bet his home is better than mine too. Older brothers. The next day at school, I shove him extra hard just because I can. Someone sees me do it. Tattletale. The principal tells me to try, blah, 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 my potential, blah, blah, blah. I look down like I feel bad. Mostly, I just feel mad. Things stay the same for a while until... Hey, did you get one? Yeah, the whole class did. Are you going? Sure, why not? Huh. Skinny kid's having a party. Everyone's invited, even me. What you gonna wear? Maybe my new dress? Whatever. I'm so not going. The morning of, I look out my window. I let the sun warm me up for a while. I put on my best shirt and go. When I get there, everyone's holding a gift. I put my hands in my pockets. I walk down the pathway, up the stairs to the front door. I see Skinny Kid's mom inside holding his birthday cake. Everyone is celebrating in the kitchen. I stay in the living room. And Jim kind of gets an opportunity to sort of look around. I sort of added this author's license, but Jimmy sees that the boy's dad is no longer with him, and he feels bad. He says, I slumped down in a chair, kicking air. I hear a sound and look up. His mom is in the doorway like she knows I'm there. She sees me, like sees me. She marches right up to me. She says in a real quiet voice, Jimmy, what would you like for lunch tomorrow? I hear you like my lunches. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you a second lunch, and my son will bring it for you every day. Okay? And you know something? She did. And that is how I got lunch every day and a whole lot more. So Jim Perez is with me right here, and I'm going to introduce you. And Jim, if it's okay, we'll just go over some questions, but feel free to, add anything you want to talk about, or, we'll just take it from there. But I'm going to, you had such an extensive bio that we had to cut it down, but Jim has done so many things. So Jim Perez is the manager of Safe and Healthy Schools. He has over 25 years of leading and coordinating and designing education and violence prevention curriculum for alternative youth. Jim served as an administrator for the Orange County Violence Prevention and Intervention Grant, funded through Orange County Health Care Agency, serving all school districts, public and private, throughout the county. These services included crisis response, anti-bullying, media literacy, conflict resolution, and Safe from the Start program. Jim has also held appointments as the director of the Right Track program, which he was named the #1 reentry program in the U.S. at the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention National Gang Symposium. And in partnership with UC Irvine, Jim established the first gang intervention certification program that provides intense training through a multidisciplinary approach to working with troubled youth. So Jim, I can't tell you how honored I am to have you here, to launch this book, Lunch Every Day. And do you mind saying a few words about yourself?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. Just really excited to be here. It's almost a dream for me just to hear Kathryn talk about the book. A lot of things happen in our lives, and I was just very fortunate to meet this beautiful lady that really changed my whole outcome of life. Unfortunately, I grew up in an environment that I didn't have a lot, and the way that I felt I needed to let my rage come about was, unfortunately, being a bully. And this kindness, this kinship, this love that this mom showed me really transformed and changed my life. And just to see, Kathryn's vision and, her illustration of the book has just been unbelievable. So just really honored to be here with everyone, and just, again, blessed. And thank you, Kathryn. It was just an amazing journey with you.
What's so interesting, Jim, is it's so interesting. And this is what's so great about books is, you go out and you stretch and grow. But for me, just a life-changing event for me was simply meeting you. And it's not simply because we've done so many events together, and we've literally, I feel like together with Also Beautiful Hands, we've reached, along with me doing school events elsewhere, over 100,000 kids. And you probably have reached well over hundreds of thousands of kids. We're talking about, I don't know the number, but it's so huge. And, one of the things, as we were talking about Lunch Every Day, is every story does have a backstory, and we do tend to put labels on people. Bullying is such a hot button word, and we as human beings are so much more than just that, just a label. So I was wondering if you can give us a little perspective more about the boy Jimmy, you growing up.
Yeah, Kathryn, absolutely. I grew up with five brothers, so there was six boys in the home. As you can imagine, a lot of competition. Unfortunately, both of my parents actually did not speak English. I actually struggled, very similar to the story you said earlier on. My first language was not English, and struggled academically. Unfortunately, my parents also did not have a lot of money, and that caused a lot of friction in the home as far as food, eating. So it was a struggle. It was a very, very difficult struggle growing up, and struggling in school, struggling at home, struggling to fit in. I also went to a school where there was actually a very low number of minority students, me being one of them. So there was a lot of different factors that were happening and occurring that, just caused me to have this feeling of kind of, we talked about, zero. I didn't feel worth. I didn't know where my place was. So I knew I was strong. I knew I was athletic, and I kind of allowed that to hide my sadness, my rage inside. So those were kind of a little bit of Jimmy growing up.
Yeah, I know, and it's so difficult to sometimes see another side. Um, what I've noticed, at least for me, is one of the things I like to say is life presents us with choices, and our choices, of course, over time starts defining who we are as people. But along the way, as we make choices and it takes us in a certain direction, we could also, fall in another way where one thing can domino into the next. And I just feel just having a guidance and someone to point us in the right direction is sometimes what a kid growing up under challenging situations, and in a challenging environment, what a turnaround that can be. I'm curious too, and I bet some of our audience would like to know a little bit about the lady who gave you all those lunches, and maybe how your relationship with the boy may or may not have changed. I mean, maybe maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. I clearly remember going back to school the next day and told everybody, um, do not touch this boy. This boy, in a sense, kind of
Yep.
became my little brother. And I made sure he was very well protected, and nobody was going to be bullying him or saying anything negative about him. Interesting is even though I was being a bully to the boy still wanted to hang out with me, still wanted to play, still wanted to be kind of part of, me, which was interesting. But after this incident, he kind of still hung out, but it was kind of part of the boy crowd. I never really connected back with the mom. And, now with this book kind of being written, it's something that, I definitely think, would maybe be a next process. I do know they actually ended up moving out of state when I went to high school, but definitely would leave a door open to kind of reconnecting, for that, just to reconnect and just to see how that one act of kindness just really transformed and changed my life.
It's so interesting that you say that, because sometimes people ask me about the girl that I saw get bullied and if I ever got in contact with her. And I did not know her last name. I mean, I actually looked it up and tried to find information. She had a very common um, Asian first name, and she moved, um, not for the same reason that the boy and this mother's and the family moved, but she moved because I think because she was bullied so much. And it's interesting. But my resolution to that story for me is I do enough public speaking where, for me, the perfect ending in some way would, of course, be like I'm speaking and then she's in the audience, or she sees me, online somehow and reaches out, and I could really tell her how I feel, and just for that kid at that time, how sorry I am. Um, that's pretty cool though, about how you became like that kid's protector. So besides that lady that gave you all those lunches, were there any other positive forces afterwards who sort of got you to where you are? Other educators or teachers or other adults, perhaps?
You know, Catherine, there's that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And the
Yeah.
reality is that that one act of kindness, in a sense, really did start that process of changing my life. But it wasn't just like, okay, now I'm not a bully anymore. You know, I still continue to live in that environment, in that home environment that was, you know, not necessarily healthy. I remember when I was in junior high, we had a assistant principal by the name of Frank Bowler, um, and he never gave up on me. And I remember as I got in trouble or I did things, and you know, he'd always kind of have this conversation of like, Jim, you know, you can be someone. You can make it. You know, you have to use uh, your passion, you know, in the right direction. And he actually going into ninth grade at that time, you went to junior high all the way to eighth grade, and then ninth grade was high school, and I was still struggling academically, but he actually had me go to a leadership camp in lieu of staying back in eighth grade, and just continue to believe in me. I actually met his wife. She was my ceramics teacher in high school, and she was also just very loving and caring. And those are just a couple of people, you know, that I could name. You know, in college, I, you know, had a professor that really believed in me as well. So definitely Mr. Steiner. So just, you know, a lot of different people in my life that really helped and supported me.
I just think that's so amazing. And for me, for me, and then going back to how you've become an educator yourself, you tirelessly work to keep schools safe. I mean, honestly, Jim, I'm so happy you were able to take the time out of your busy day to be with us because you were running so many different programs. But maybe, do you have any advice that you can give to our audience, like a student, teacher, parents here, that you would like to add from what you've learned as an educator of all these different programs?
Yeah, Catherine, what comes to mind to me is the saying that I've said for many, many years is kids don't care how much you know until they realize how much you care. Um, we really need to take a step back. You know, when someone is being a bully, they're hurting. There's something happening. There's things that, you know, are occurring in his life or her life that are causing the outlet of rage. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think you know, in that process is be kind, be loving, be supporting, let people know that you do care and you are there to support and help them. Listen, you know, I think sometimes we're quick to respond with discipline or a policy that's zero tolerance, but we're not actually listening to individuals and what's happening in their lives and what's causing this to continue to occur.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much of it is about, at least for me, when we talk about, for example, the issues of bullying, they kind of call it almost like a sandwich, but it's to change, for example, bullying in a school. It takes so much, right? The parents need to be involved. The teachers and staff need to support a program. And then, of course, the kids need to be engaged in themselves. And for me, a picture book sort of does everything because with a picture book, we learn visually, right? So we're showing pictures, we learn audibly. So we are able to read a book to get kids to engage and talk about some of the issues. But, human beings want to be inspired with their hearts and their spirit. And I feel like, for example, with your story, Jim, it's inspirational. It's a true story, and we need that. We need to know and see someone like you who turned it around in such a positive way. And the last component of it for me was the action part of it, and what my audience taught me was the additional step of doing art projects, for example, doing actual physical things like creating a mural with handprints. Um, you and I used to do these spirit birds together too, where everybody made a handprint. They can decorate, they could do whatever they want, but they made a commitment by writing their name on it, saying, I promise to do something kind for somebody every day. And we would actually have them make that hand promise, and then we would do an art project, and then afterwards, it would be we would do a bird. We would create a physical 3-dimensional bird that they can hang in their school. And we did that for tons and tons of schools, but all of it is part of learning. So we learn physically as well. And I feel like that's how things really start to change, is when we combine all of those aspects of teaching and learning. I'm going to just say a quick note about lunch every day with the art part of it, Jim, that you reminded me about, feeling and wanting to be a part of something. I made all the illustrations in this book so that you don't see Jimmy. He is from the back, he is from the side, but there's a marginalization kind of going on. He's towards the edges of the page. And you do not see Jimmy really until someone sees him. And that's the woman who sees him. And of course, Jimmy is not used to being recognized or seen, and he thinks it's going to be a negative interaction when he is seen, but it is not. And I think that there's 3 heroes in this story. I see it as the woman who gave you those lunches every day. And it wasn't just like, here, kid, here's $5, get yourself a lunch. It was the consistent act of doing something. And I think you said it was over a year where she was thinking about you, and you knew she was thinking about you. And then the second hero for me is you, who saw this opportunity for change, for transformation, and it was always in you. That's the thing. And the last hero in the story for me is the little boy who must have seen through the wall and said something to his mom, saying, I want to invite Jimmy to my party, into my home. So that is lunch every day. I was going to mention that for some schools too, I'm doing these raffles, but having lunch with kids virtually, where we sit at the table. And Jim, I know you feel the same way about food. We're always, whenever we meet, we eat together. But don't you think it's so much about eating and sitting at the table together, sharing cultures, sharing what's going on in our day? That's how I feel about food, lunch, and this book is really about sharing, having a platform for us to all be on together, and for reaching out and being empathetic and compassionate. So that for me, is there anything else you want to add, Jim, to this?
No, I think you hit it on, Kathryn. What I do want to add is, if anybody has any questions, they can email books@bookpassage.com. We do want to open it up for some questions, and we will start answering some of those questions. So, Kathryn, is there any questions so far that you see?
Let's see. It says, someone in the chat says, what can we do if we see someone being a bully in our lives? I think the first thing for me that I tell kids is first to understand what bullying is. Bullying is, it has to be at least a couple of different things, right? It needs to be intentional, like someone keeps doing it over and over on purpose. They've been told, but they keep doing it. And then of course, so that leads to repetitive. We know that they're going out of their way, and they keep doing over and over. And we know in our hearts when someone is doing things intentionally and not, for example. So defining that, because sometimes we do jokes that aren't funny. We do things that we wouldn't want to be labeled a bully for, and that we're sorry for. So that's the first thing, is understanding what bullying is. But if someone is truly being a bully, I actually feel like, and Jim, you could even speak better than this to me about, but I feel like sort of going to the source and finding out maybe why And also maybe talking to a trusted adult about it. I think that's the biggest thing. Someone that you really trust that will know how to handle the situation, because sometimes we just don't feel safe to do so. Jim, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Catherine, I really love when you talk about first looking for a trusted adult. So I think what you want to do in that situation is confide in your teacher, your mom, your father, your pastor, someone that you trust, and just kind of let them know what's happening and going on. One thing that I would caution us a little bit, though, is that try to see if you can have that conversation with that bully and that trusted adult, and kind of see, like, what's going on in that bully's life, what's happening, what's occurring. Let's be kind, let's be compassionate. And for me, that's why this book was so important, was that here's a mom where I was taking away their son's lunch, and I'm sure the mom was probably extremely upset when he went home. Is like, what did you eat? Well, no, Jimmy took my lunch. A mom that could have been, mad and upset and gone to the school and said, hey, I want this kid in trouble. But no, the mom said, what can I make for you? And it was that act of kindness, that act of kinship. And I think that's kind of what we need to do as well in these acts. When you're seeing someone being a bullying, is see how you can engage that individual. And as Kathryn talked about, really kind of getting to know what's happening and occurring, to kind of help that individual. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everyone feels safe.
That's right. And I also feel like I've had a mother come to me to talk about the book one, and she was in tears, and it was really wonderful. And I'm like, honestly, nothing can warrant this level of how you feel about it. I mean, I wrote a book, but she said, no, I took that book and I gave it to that principal, and one principal took that book to each classroom, and each teacher read that book, and they started talking about it, and we started talking and having conversations about it. And I do honestly feel that when we have difficult subject matters, a wonderful way to be able to get people to start conversing about such a tricky and challenging issue is to show them a picture book, because it's like not even a full step. It's like half a step. When you talk to kids, when you say, why do you think red is being mean to blue? And they'll talk about it. And then, then you just ask, has this ever happened to you, or have you ever seen it? And just the floodgates just open. And that's the power of books. That's why I do see a bit of magic, is that's how we enter conversations into tricky subject matters. Oh, Jackson asks, who is your favorite person in your book? For me, it's Jim. Jim is the favorite person in my book. Because I know him, but also because what a difficult thing to do, to go to cross the threshold. You can see that there's a gate there. I make it a big deal for him to go up the steps, for him to not have anything to give in his hands, and to open that door and see everybody celebrating in the kitchen. And Jim, you told me you were thinking about leaving, and instead you were sat down, or something happened, and you were sitting, I think. And that's when she came over. And that is really scary to do. And people ask me about the book one, and yeah, red is my favorite color. One of my favorite characters is red, because he turned it around, and then he changes things in the book zero. Jim, do you want to answer the next question?
Yeah.
It says, what do you think teachers should remember when dealing with bullying?
We're all human. We all make mistakes. And I really, think teachers should remember that that child is hurting. Something's happening, something's occurring. And again, I'm going to go back to teachers and individuals that didn't label me, didn't make me feel belittled, and really just let me know that they care about me, they support me, and how could they help me. And it's interesting because you look at my life now, and as you talked about, Kathryn, I've probably reached more than 250,000 students in various programs that I've been involved in. Um, and it's because of all those people that I remembered, that cared about me, that supported me. And I always didn't make the right decision, but each action I never ever forgot. So just amazing. So be kind, be loving, and be caring.
So thank you. On that note, the book really, above even the issue of the bullying, is really about how a single act of kindness can make such a huge difference, and certainly can reverberate into generations to come. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. You can buy lunch every day, autographed copies of the book. I am, because I have actually two books launching the same day, a soft cover of Draw the Line, which will also be available at Book Passage. That happens at 4 p.m. on Instagram. So please watch me fumble and learn how to figure out Instagram Live at 4 p.m. But thank you so much. Thank you, Nick, for hosting this. And everybody, I apologize. I did think I could see all your faces, but I gave Nick a hard time. I'm like, oh no, I can't. But I know that you're there with me. I could feel it in spirit. And please feel free to ask Book Passage any questions if you have any. But thank you so very much. Have a great day.
Absolutely. So it seems like that's my cue. Thank you one last time, everybody, for coming on out. I had a great time. Thank you for the couple people that asked questions in the email. That was very nice of you. One final thing, although there were many things, many books mentioned here tonight, or tonight, or this morning. You can find all of those at bookpassage.com, but lunch every day is available from the very first link in the description just below the video. And if you are a teacher and you want lots of copies, I highly suggest that you just call Book Passage up, because we help teachers out and stuff like that. Other than that, we have a number of other events going on today, so you can either hang out here and watch them with us. Although heads up, they're not for children that are the rest of the books, or the rest of the books today. But other than that, regardless of whether you'll be here for the next one or not, thank you for coming out this morning. I really do hope to see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks to the classroom that came, and friends and family who are supporting our book. Thanks, everyone.